I'm Tim, the Brand Weaver, and this is Branding for Breweries, the podcast that helps you grow your brewery, build a better brand, and connect with more drinkers. Each week, I'm joined by the brightest minds in the beer world, sharing practical tips to help your brewery stand out and sell more beer. Let's get stuck in. Kalukale! Good morning, everyone. How are we doing? It is Branding for Breweries, the show that brings you the brightest, most attractive, intelligent, and wonderful people from the beer industry to your earballs and eyeballs to educate you like there is no tomorrow. And today is another special one, boys and girls, because I have the crew, the Brand Weaver Collective are here. Everyone say hello.
Hiya.
Look at that.
Full energy on a Monday morning.
Ooh. Don't worry, guys. We are very excited to be here. We can prove it as we start talking. But yes, we know it's not just little old Tim doing this anymore. We have the collective. Let's go around the room, and I'm going to give a little bit of a background as to what we're going to be chatting about afterwards. So, top left corner of my screen, at least, is the delightful Mr. Jack. Jack, who are you, and what do you do with the collective, my man?
I am Jack Coomber. I'm the marketing arm of the collective. I've been in marketing now for 15 years, worked in supplements, then sort of slowly came over to slightly more fun things, which is craft beer.
Beautiful. Matty, what about yourself, good sir?
So I'm Matty, and I'm, I guess, heading up or working with Tim on a lot of the design and illustration work and pulling together the brand identities for all these lovely beers.
The lovely beers for the lovely people. Talking of lovely people, Harry, who are you and where'd you come from?
Thank you, Tim. I'm Harry Kelly. I look after sort of brand strategy and brand side of what we offer at the collective. I've worked in beer for years now, sort of cask and keg, and I'm based up north.
Boom. And of course, anyone who is joining in, we've already had Samantha say hello on Instagram. So hello, Samantha. Nice for you to tune in. If anyone does have any questions through all of this, just throw them into the chat window. We will do our best to help you out with them as we go through. But the background of this chat, of this podcast, whatever you want to call it, is for us to re-deliver the sellout presentation of the year at BeerX. It's the one that everyone tried to get to. They couldn't get tickets. Doors were shut. No, I'm overhyping it. But basically, trains were late and people couldn't get in quick enough. We had people standing at the back. All the chairs were taken. And we went, I tell you what, we're going to deliver it via the form of the internet. And this time, we are blessed with the presence of Matty. Because, Matty, you couldn't make it last time, could you, mate?
No, well, I couldn't even get in. Yeah.
You're in a different country. So fair enough. At least we've got all of us here today. And the presentation is titled Branding for Breweries, like the name of the show, How to Build a Brand That Sells More Beer, which is, of course, what we are here to help you do. So we're going to get stuck in. We're going to talk you through the presentation. We're going to give away as much value as we possibly can over the next 35 minutes or so. But please do join in the conversation as and when you can. And this time it's a little bit different. There is a presentation because, of course, we did the presentation at BeerX. And for those of you listening in, I appreciate that's challenging to work out what that might look like with your eyes, just seeing it in your brain. But if you want a copy of the presentation, drop me an email, drop me a DM, find me, stalk me, and say, send me the PDF, Tim, and I will certainly do that. But for now, let's get stuck in, but let's keep it cash. Guys, if you want to throw anything into the mix, please feel free to, okay? Verbal acknowledgement, yes?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We're gonna come on, warm up, guys. We got this. All right. So how do we create a brand that sells more beer? I think the important thing to know here is we do this because we are unapologetically passionate about beer, just like you beautiful guys and girls out there working in breweries across the globe. But hopefully by this point, a lot of you would have realized that great beer is your ticket to entry. It is it's the function of your business at the end of the day. And everyone can have a lovely liquid, but if you don't have other things backing that up, it's going to be a real challenge to thrive in the marketplace. Now, I want to get stuck into a state of play where we are at the moment. And then, of course, my friends in the collective are going to break it down bit by bit and how we can better this and really, do some great things with you. But if you are seeing the video format of this, I've got a chart on the screen right now. And what it shows is the demand for beer over the past 15 odd years, and also the number of breweries. But high level, since pre-2010, the demand for beer has been going down. Nearly 5 million hec it has decreased in that time. But also during that time, we've had the incredible craft beer boom. We've had the first wave. We've gone into rapid growth where it was the most awesome thing to do and get involved in. But I appreciate, and everyone knows, COVID happens and things started to drop. The hangover then kicked in. We found ourselves in this mature marketplace now where we don't have as much demand for beer. And those people who do want a beer are really quite wedded to certain brands, or indeed how they want to drink, because they've become attached and grown fond of them through these troubling times. So you're already battling for attention from a drinker because they've decided they're a craft beer drinker, they're an indie beer drinker, but now they've got their favorite breweries already. So it's very hard to kind of get in there like a ninja and steal their attention and indeed their palates. Alongside this, and yes, caveat, I'm going to be talking about the stuff which is terrifying before everyone else talks about all the fun and exciting things. Money. We all know no one's got as much money as they used to, unfortunately. You know, the average like weekly wage or household disposable income has kind of flatlined from just after 2005 to where we are now. But the cost of a pint continues to increase, and we understand why. But for example, you look at 2000, average pint cost was £1.90. You fast forward to now, and it's average of £4.52 a pint. Now, I appreciate a lot of you going, I can't find a pint for £4.52, but this is a UK average, people. Work with me here. And if you think about it, if prices are even more than that, it's even more demanding on your drinkers out there. So no one's got as much money. Beer is costing more these days. They already know what brewery they want to drink at. It's a really challenging picture. It's a really challenging situation to be part of. And then, of course, on top of that, you guys and girls are working every hour under the sun. You've got multiple hats that you're wearing. You can't even justify bringing someone else in as a full-time employee to help you out. So the struggle very much is real. But as I mentioned, friends, fear not. We are the light at the end of the tunnel. We are the Sherpas that will navigate you up Brand Hill towards brand strategy, identity design, and marketing nirvana. And through this conversation, the next couple of minutes, Harry's going to talk about brand strategy. Matty's going to be talking about the identity side of things. And of course, the glorious Jack, whose beard is just poking from underneath the framework right now, is going to be talking to you about marketing. And all with the aid to help you sell more beer, ladies and gentlemen. So that's enough of me rambling on. I'm going to pass over to the wonderful Harry, who's going to talk to you about strategy. But if you've got questions, throw them in the chat and we'll get to them as we go along. Over to you, Harry.
Thanks, Tim. That was a lovely intro. This is a funny one to get our head around because I'm used to visual aids with this presentation. So bear with me if it goes slightly conversational, but that's lovely. We'll speak about brand strategy and why you need one. So what is a brand strategy? A brand strategy should be really a concise document that outlines your brand's long-term plan for success. And baked into it should be vital details around your target drinker, who they are, what they're into, how your brand can actually appeal to them. Carrying out a brand strategy, a piece of work, basically forces you to nail all these key details that you do need to know about your brand in terms of values, vision, mission, and then getting into things around positioning and how you hit the drinkers that you need to. It basically just ensures that you know what you're doing and why. So yeah, forgive the slightly intimidating word strategy. That is actually just what it is. It is your brand's plan for success. Yes. No, expanding on that a little bit, it doesn't need to be huge. Like a brand strategy sounds quite like intimidating. I think when you're maybe not so well versed with the marketing side of things, it doesn't need to be reams and reams of pages in great detail. A great brand strategy can be super concise, and it can actually be something quite refined and quite specific, which is easily digestible by anyone in your business. What I find quite helpful when you start to consider brand strategy and try and sort of demystify the language around it is to start thinking about your brand as if they're a person. So if you were having a pint at the pub and your brand in human form came and joined you, what are they all about? What are they wearing? What are they drinking? What sort of energy do they bring to the table? What are their values? If you start to view your brand as a person, it can really help you sort of get under the bonnet of what you need to know about it in order to reach your drinkers. So as we all know, brewery life is really busy. So I think an understanding of the challenges that breweries face when trying to tackle and create a brand strategy is really important. We'll often be juggling 1,000 things at once, and every day is really, really different. Brand strategy can feel like a huge piece of work to get stuck into when you have very little resource or time. But the reality is, if you do skip doing the work around brand strategy, if you don't create your map for success and how you're going to get to where you want to be going, you can get lost. And when you get lost, it takes up loads of time, and you can actually end up creating a lot more work for yourselves. And your brand can suffer by becoming diluted by maybe carrying out the wrong activations or showing up in the wrong way to the wrong people. So even though it's extremely tricky trying to sort of get your head around fitting in a big project like a strategic piece, it's incredibly worthwhile longer term. So building on that, it's just great to have an understanding of what good strategy does. As I went over a minute ago, it forces you to do essential planning. So actually spending the time to sit down and work out what your brand strategy is makes you nail things that you actually just need to know, especially around your target drinker and creating personas, starting to really understand who you're trying to appeal to and how you're going to get there. Great brand strategy means that everyone in your business is singing from the same hymn sheet and has a decent idea of what your brand's about. They don't have to speak marketing to understand it. In fact, great brand strategy means that people can have no idea about marketing and be totally unfamiliar, but still get an idea of what your brand is and how it should act, how it would operate, what decisions it would make at key moments as well. It's incredibly helpful to be strategically aligned, because it means that cross-departmentally, everyone has that shared understanding, and you can get less stuck in this sort of sales, marketing, production sort of toing and froing around decision making. If it becomes, if you've done it well, a bit obvious on what the right move is for your brand once you've already done the legwork. Shared brand clarity and literacy is invaluable and saves a hell of a lot of time. Giving your business permission to say no, if that is the right thing. Shiny object, blah, blah, blah. Sorry, Tim, I'm going to skip back a slide a moment.
I've gone rogue. I'm so sorry.
Rogue. No, it's so fun. Thank you.
Go back, Tim. Put the other one on, you idiot.
Tim, bring back my good strategy slide. That's great. Thank you. I think it just, I guess, a bit of a fun piece, but just a reality piece is shiny object syndrome is something we talk about quite a lot in the collective. And it's a very real thing working in a brewery. And it will be the same thing in loads of different sort of startup style businesses too. And it's because things are exciting. But what I mean by shiny object syndrome is amazing opportunities, cool new things shoot in on any day of the week. And it can feel really hard not to just suddenly pivot and then start focusing on a new thing that's come in rather than what you'd set out to do in that day, week, month. And these things can be really distracting, you know, whether it's cool tattoo artist has just got in touch and he wants to do a beer with us, but it needs to be flipped around in 3 weeks. What do we do? Like, these things are really exciting. And the reason they're so prevalent in beer is because there's loads of amazing heads and cultural clashes and brilliant things that are always going on, but they can be really distracting and take you off your journey and the right direction of travel if you don't have the strategic clarity and confidence to say no to them when it's appropriate. So strategy should always change by goal. To be a bit blunt, because it comes up so often, I think it's maybe helpful. Growth is not a goal. Goals need to be a little bit more specific than that. And I think we've all been guilty of throwing something like growth down as a goal. Digging into what you specifically want to achieve, where you want to grow, for example, is really important. And your brand strategy will always back this up. So, for example, strategy for scale, that's all about brand recognition and awareness. So making sure that when people do spot your brand, they spot it in the first place, but the time it takes them to spot it is quicker and quicker. And it's about getting people to immediately think, oh, that color, that's evoking something in me. Oh, that typeface. Oh, it's this. It's about that recognition and making sure that your brand looks super consistent everywhere that it's showing up. A D2C strategy, whether that's through your web shop or your tap room, it's all about prioritizing behavior. So trying to harness loyalty, getting people to want to come back, making sure that those interactions that they have with your brand throughout their journey, whether that's physically in a tap room or maybe your customer journey through your web shop, it's making sure that that's the best it possibly can be, and that experience is everything, and it will keep them coming back. Local dominance strategy is another great example, which I think a lot of indie breweries focus on, in the UK at least. It's all about showing up consistently as well, and making sure that the experience the locals and your community are having is remarkable, but also expected, if that makes sense. Like if people go to your tap room, they know what to expect. If people are on holiday in a certain area, they know that they want to go to your site because they know what to expect from it. It's about building a world that is your brand's entirely. The use of AI in brand strategy. So I think obviously AI is a nice hot topic at the moment, and we'd be foolish not to at least touch on how AI can be used in strategy and whether it should be. I mean, my main headline is that AI is never going to replace human critical thinking and creative thinking in terms of strategy. AI can be amazing for things like pattern spotting. If you are time strapped and resource strapped and you don't have big budgets for, huge amounts of insights reports or data analysis, like, yes, AI can be really helpful to help you get to where you need to be quicker, whether it's helping out with understanding what's out there, what market trends are happening, collating newspaper articles and updates. Like, it can be really handy, and it can be really handy for more junior teams to start to understand how they might present or how they might format a piece of work if it's something they've not done before. But in terms of actually nailing what your brand's about and its market positioning, say, it's nothing on humans. It misses so much detail and context that's important. And if you end up sitting in and steering into AI's take on where your brand should be, AI is just regurgitating and collating everything that's already out there. So you're going to end up being pretty similar to what's already out there. Or maybe something super far-fetched that would never work, and there's a reason it's never been even remotely done before. So I think AI can be a really handy tool in your day-to-day, but in terms of creative, I would personally steer clear as much as you can. So just to wrap up my lovely strategy section, and it's not the sexiest takeaway ever, but I think it's really practical and important, but nailing brand strategy is the most cost-effective way that you can challenge as a brand. Nailing things like tone of voice and consistency in all brand materials and your marketing, that's organic. It can actually be free to nail them. It just takes time and literacy around your brand. That can take you really, really far. And also making sure that if you know your brand inside out, anything that you're briefing, whether it's working with external creatives, working with internal teams, your briefs will be bang on because you understand what you're aiming to get to. It means that you're not going to get weeks and months down the line in a project and realize that that designer's clearly giving you something back that you don't really want, because what you gave them in the first place wasn't actually that specific and didn't have the right understanding of what your brand's all about. It just, brand strategy can ensure that your whole team's working towards a shared vision, and it's a really vital piece to nail. Actually, forgot about this, but really handy piece, just I think is a nice thing, is if you nail things like a piece of brand strategy work, you can immediately look pretty premium when it comes to being in discussions with key decision makers or buyers. So if you're pushing for a supermarket listing and you're able to show Tesco a presentation that clearly has a nuanced awareness of your brand's plan, its map, its road to success, and how it's going to show up, their confidence in you is tenfold. And it's a really good way to have your things together.
Have your ducks in a row, as
Your
it were.
ducks in a row, yes. No foul language on here.
No, I think we've all experienced like knowing when a project should have had a strategy and seeing the benefits of clients who've had strategy, or indeed, of course, we're working with them. And the thing that it really screams to me is if there's a brewery out there and you're going, right, so who's your target drinker? And your response is everyone. Or what is your goal? And you go growth. And it's like, and how do you differentiate? It's like, well, through quality liquid, this is the time you need to think about strategy, right? Because otherwise you're going to be, working with people like ourselves and going, oh, well, we're not quite sure what we want, or we'll know it when we see it as well. Is another, big trip up area, especially in the design side of things. But yeah, I think strategy is a no brainer. Everyone agree? Anyone else want to throw in any little nuggets before we move into Maddie?
I was just going to say one of the obvious places this arises is when breweries go from micro to expanding. When you're that one person, you've got the voice, you are the voice, you're everything about the brand. And as soon as you bring other people in, if you're not communicating that correctly, there's that huge disconnect from what they perceive the brand to be or the brewery to be, and the way they talk about it and the way they sell it is different to how you've been doing it. And that's where you can kind of drift apart and fall apart. And it's a really, really important transition period.
Valid point, good summer.
Yeah, I agree. And I think as I kind of will start to jump into the design identity, like I always approach, any design from a strategic perspective, because that is your roadmap. That's, if as well, when we're trying to rationalize any design choices, whether it be color, typography, or just the general aesthetic or where it places itself in the market, if we have a strategy in place, we can keep returning to that and sense check it. And then down the road, I know I'm echoing a few points Harry just made, that it will get busy and you will get tired of the current brand, but it is always good to have it always there. And not saying that strategies don't evolve, they do, identities do evolve, but you have various different symptoms through the life, the life of a brand, where you have new people come in, they have new views, which might be taken on board or might not. And I think the strategy is really helpful to keep everyone on task, to realize and remember the vision of the brand. I think that's what's the hardest part to maintain, is that you start your company, probably like many breweries, I just want to make the beer I love to drink. And now we're in a place where technical excellence is the entrance fee. We're in a mature market, and the brand and what is on the outside going to your customer on trade and off trade is the point of difference for a lot of breweries now. And I know that could be hard for them to hear that, but from the consumer's perspective, that is all they kind of have to go off, at least initially. So it's always really, like, it makes my job easier. And I'm sure with Tim, we talk about this a lot. Mm-hmm. Your job is so much easier if you have a strategy to start with. And so, number one, start with Harry.
Start with the strategy. I think it is important to acknowledge before we dive into the identity design side of things as well, is we, you know, someone like the collective can pull together a wicked strategy to set a foundation, but there has to be accountability from the brewery side of things as well. It's really disappointing when something like a solid strategy gets pulled together and it just gets left in a folder on a desktop or a drive. You know, it's not something that you go in to go, right, well, this in isolation will fix everything. No, this is the map to get you there. And then you really have to bring the team along to make it work, right? It's important that it's a relationship, it's a collaboration at the end of the day, a collective collaboration, as it were, if we were going to throw in the word collective. Anyway, Matty, let's talk identity design, my man. Why don't you take us on a bit of a journey about, okay, beyond looking pretty, what does an identity, a brewery identity, really need to do?
Yeah, well, I'll just, you know, as I wasn't here for the original presentation, I think I'll be a little more anecdotal, and that's kind of my style as I go through this. I think on the next slide, it mentions an identity is a signal, and that is exactly right. If you are considering your product or your brand, you're refreshing or starting from scratch, the first thing I'd like to kind of, you know, to have you be thinking about is that your customer will come for the beer, but they'll stay for the culture. And then this is a lot to do with the strategy that, you know, Harry was talking about. But what I'd also like you to think about is, and this is where when I like to present or develop a design identity, is to think about the person where they are, and like in, say, if it's in a pub, a backyard, a park, where they're going to be drinking it, how it looks in their hand or sat on a table, and what kind of scenario and world that's in. And if you start to develop a bit of an idea in your mind of what that is and what that feels like, you know, as an emotional thing, that is the essence of a signal to be sent to someone. That's how they're making their choices. People are curating their entire lives with different brands that they'll pick and choose from in this competitive landscape that we have, especially in beer. It is really, really competitive. And, you know, as an example of that, we now have, you know, the four of us here as a collective in this space. We haven't had this, you know, before, but this is, you know, just to demonstrate how competitive this market has become. Like Tim mentioned, the price of pints is so expensive now. So we're really trying to find ways to, you know, to sell more beer. And so the number one thing, like once you've got your strategy done, but when you're in market, is that signal, is when someone sees it on the shelf or they see the keg badge and they haven't tried your product before, what do they initially feel? What gives them a sense? Is this cool or is this not cool? Is this heritage or old school or contemporary or artistic? Does it represent them as people? So these are all things that we're thinking about when, you know, developing an identity. And then as well within that, you know, just jumping back into the competitive landscape, is that from a creative perspective, I want to look at, okay, what is an audit the whole market? So who are your competitors? What are they doing? And what should we be doing? And for example, you know, a brewery that I do a lot of work with, Pillars, when we rebranded that, it was a case of looking at the market, and this was, you know, during a time where everyone was doing crazy, vibrant art, and the shelves were like full of amazing stuff, beautiful, like, you know, illustrations and paintings and all this. And it was essentially like everyone trying to out-peacock each other. And I looked at that, I said, all right, I don't know, because Pillars is a lager brand, I don't know if we'll be able to compete against that, particularly because at the time the perception around lager was, you know, especially in the craft beer space or small beer space, was this is boring, you know. Obviously that's changed now, but so I thought, let's go the opposite route. Let's really strip it back and bring it to something where it isn't so, putting, a lager brand, like if it's hard to imagine it now, having a crazy illustrations for a lager brand because it's just established itself. But that was like a competitive consideration that we wanted to stand out on the shelf by not standing out, essentially. Like, so to take a different tactic, go typographically led and not illustration led. And so that as an example, and I think as well as some breweries who do taking a minimal approach versus a maximalist approach. And so you could kind of have, just shifting techniques and how to like look at the market visually, color choices. I think that's really important. I think that's a lot, like people overlook that and how important that is. And as part of the strategy too, that, think about that, the North Star, the person in the park at a picnic drinking from something, someone else sees it from a distance as they're walking through the park. Can they recognize that when they see it in the shop? Is it visually recognizable as a product? And that's, I'm rattling off a lot of stuff here, but it is it's so easy to overlook these different design considerations. I'm just, so I'm just having a quick look at my notes. And I think as well, it's difficult. I'm a very strategically led designer, so I tend to jump back and forth between strategy and speak a lot more in general terms if I don't have a brand specifically in front of me. But I think what we're seeing is, especially in this space, which is quite similar to a lot of established brands. If you think about like Heineken or Carlsberg and all these kind of major brands, and what's happening in smaller beer is that we're now seeing a shift from a product first mentality to a culture first. And I know that we can have a lot of discussion about this and how that fits in, but a lot of what we're starting to see is that strategies of selling to everyone we possibly can, not so much, trying to go deeper and to sell to specific communities, or whether it's local communities or community groups or these kind of things. I think that's a lot of consideration of what your design identity and what your brand identity does. I think like one of the excellent standouts is like Beak Brewery in Lewis, and what they do is it's so specific, and Danny and the team there have done such a great job, and he's expressed to me about how difficult that is to maintain it, and so that it doesn't go have too many shiny object syndrome and try to do lots of different things. And within their identity, they have this ability to do very specific collaborations. And I think that's, again, trying to think of really far down the line, being aspirational is like, where would I want to go with this? Where can the flexibility of the identity design, where can that go? And to think of the culture of it, and to just not get too stuck in, okay, we have a lager, we have a pale ale, this is what that looks like. Yes, it's really, really important. But what's really important is to consider where it lands, and that we have a story and we have a connection to people. That's our connective tissue, between someone going, oh, this beer is banging, and then being connected like through the intangibles to say, I love this and I'm gonna keep buying it. And that's what we're trying to get to. I think I covered a lot of this competitive advantage. A lot of these mistakes, pretty classic ones, ignoring the strategy. That's as a reminder, just keep coming back to it and have a refresh on it, internally. If you're deciding to rework your core range, or you want to come out with a new seasonal range, just come back to your strategy and double check. Designing for peers is also another classic. Everyone tends to follow each other. Like, this brewery did this amazing series and it looks awesome, or they've done this crazy treatment on their labels, and then everyone does it. So just again, to think what's happening in the market, how can we do the opposite or try something else, and keep challenging yourself, because, you know, the consumer notices, and you know, especially on trade, you know, off trade, they see this. They see when, oh, I saw that brewery did this, and it discounts you. You know, it's so just try to do something else. Don't overcomplicate it too much. You know, there's this fine line, or a little narrow corridor, as I refer to it, where you try to, you know, you want to create value. And I think it's mentioned in here, like little Easter eggs, which are brilliant, you know, to have these. But you've got to also not be too clever, and just to, you know, not lose the drinker. Like, I'm very nerdy about beer, especially craft beer, and I love it. But even myself, I get too involved, and I make it too nerdy, and I have to remind myself to step back and go, okay, what about, you know, someone who doesn't know what this term means? So I think that's important. And then I guess, you know, the crazy one, the question I get so much about AI in design. I think we are all, you know, as looking at it from a purely design and creative perspective, I think a lot of designers, we're all very well aware of AI tools and how they work. It's even in our design software now. I would say, as a, you know, the issues that I see with it are, and what I've seen in the market, is that what is unique is being lost, because it's AI tends to work to a rule of averages, and it tends to replicate a lot of what's already been done. I think that's a bit of an issue. So that invites a bit of risk into using AI for your design. And then there's also the other side of it, which, you know, you fall into a category of breweries that use AI design, and whether or not that's a category that you want to be in or not. So you need to make the choice for that. And yeah, but I think ultimately I worry that how competitive you can be with if you lean on this as a tool too much, because the generation of original ideas and original thoughts are not there. And I think a lot of the best design has a lot of consideration given to it and a lot of work. And so I would caution, you know, the use of this in a creative aspect. I get briefs now from clients where they're going to execute the ideas that I come up with, you know, on a strategic level and corporate stuff, because they can use AI to do that, but they don't have the ideas to start with. And this is what's really important. So, yeah. And I guess this is Tim's key takeaway, but your identity needs to do so much more than look pretty if you want it to work for you. And yeah, I hope that's absolutely like the takeaway. I feel like it's excellent. I didn't write that, so
yeah. For those of people who are listening in, like we said, you know, Matty wasn't at the presentation, so I took the design side of things because I do some designing as well. But yeah, I'm glad that we echo. On the AI side of things, you know, it's saying like it's just kind of, you get the medium ground, you get the same. Like I've been spotting this more and more now on LinkedIn as well. But I don't know if anyone else spotted it, but there's a post that's been out about just a grid of like spring fair posters, and they just all look exactly the same. And I've now noticed like one template that keeps on popping up, which has like a couple of stats and like a particular like stroke line on it. I'm like, oh, hang on, this is really easy to spot these days.
I think it's really tough. Like I feel for a lot of, you know, I've been around for a while, like, and And I think about it like, oh man, if you're starting a brand or starting this stuff, and it can look like, oh, this is really going to save me time and do all this, and then you've got people like ourselves who we've had the whole period of time without this tool, and now we also have the tool. And so if you're starting there at the AI, and we're also like, oh yes, we've got it too, then where are you? You know, at like the measure of like what can be done is, you know, you still like, so speak to experts. I think it's like, it's still so important that, because if you think, oh, I'm going to get a leg up on a person who has expertise in this field, yeah, so I think it's created a bit of a, yeah, I don't know, it's interesting, very interesting.
False confidence.
Yeah.
You believe that it's going to be great.
Mm.
My stance on AI is ever so slightly more positive, because from a marketing perspective, there's ways you can use it that aren't on the visual side. So it gives you a lot of leverage on time that can benefit you. But I interrupted you, Tim.
No, it's cool. The other thing I just wanted to fly back on from a design side of things before, Jack, you can wax lyrical about your beautiful marketing that you do, is like everyone goes, well, a lot of people will look at a can and go, hey, that's really cool. But not everyone who looks at the same can goes, that's really cool. There is a certain person it is designed to appeal to, and it's meant to kind of stand out and resonate. Like with myself, like classic skater, gothic, rock, metal kind of stuff is my bag. So anything that looks like that, I'm like, that's cool. And I'm instantly drawn to it. But that's because I'm a particular type of person. I'm not under any illusion that I'm a completely unique beast in any way. But it is that thinking. It comes down to the strategic side of things to go, which type of person are we trying to get in front of? And I think that's a thought process that sometimes gets overlooked when someone just goes, we want a standout can, or we want a cool looking lens. It's like, well, cool to who? You're standing out to who? It's a little nugget. Should we, Jack, do you want to talk to us a little about marketing though? Yeah, come on.
Yes.
Who's got two thumbs and wants to talk about marketing? This guy. Here we go. Take it away, my man.
On cue as well. Now, my section was called Turning Movement into Momentum. It's basically turning all this awesome stuff into action. And the title is basically to highlight the importance of purpose-driven content and marketing that really stands behind the two sections that we've gone through, and really reflects to the end consumer everything that's not just the can or, you know, the brewery, whatever it is all of the stuff that's in the background. It's the placement of your marketing as well. And this is often highlighted to me when I have a new customer or client come into me and they're like, what they say is, we're not posting enough. We need more frequency. We're on every platform. And that is movement, but not necessarily momentum. And I call that the activity trap. It's being busy, but not being effective. So you're setting yourself an arbitrary target of 3 posts a week on Instagram. Otherwise, you know, the world explodes. But are you just replacing good content with a picture of a fermenter because on that day you didn't have anything planned and it's right in front of you? So we've all been there. It's just the conversation of let's throw up a post. We need to get something up. We've not done it this week. And a random picture makes onto social media that doesn't have any reflection of your strategy, your brand, who your target audience is, who you're trying to attract. And it often means that you're not doing anything seasonally. You could be focusing on events. You could be focusing on communicating your North Star and what you're trying to achieve as a brewery, whether that's, you know, carbon neutrality or whatever it is. So what does good marketing do? It should develop clarity over time. It should incrementally and reinforce your brewery's message, what you're trying to communicate to your end consumer. And that is your beers, it's your specialization, it's your location, the seasonality, it is events, it's bands that you associate with, it's artists you associate with. all of that comes into communicating your message or your strategy, your North Star, however you want to frame it, to reflect the culture of your brewery. You should always reinforce, not distract from what your strategy is, your message. And this is backing up what Harry said, and not jumping on random trends, shiny objects, because something has come across your desk. It's not great as a brewery if you've identified you're going after the city slicker, the post-work pint, you're on the streets in central London, to then run a hoedown at your brewery because a country music artist has come and said something to you like, "Oh, we need a space." That's great. You'll probably bring in a lot of potential money on that day, but are you distracting from what you could be doing with organizing that in that time? Marketing should always reflect your brand, your story, your unique selling position to your customer, and the unique story that you've spent a lot of time weaving into your communication and into your branding. Tim, metrics. It's something that I always get asked about, whether it's not necessarily through clients, it's more pints at the bar. And everybody's like, we're tracking this, this, and this, and you can't achieve 10 individual little micro goals that you've set your team. By the end of the year, we want to achieve these 10 different things. Really effective marketing is where you're going after one specific metric that has maybe a couple of things that are attached to it. So if you're looking at local dominance, for example, you should be focusing on your events, your in-person events, your handshakes with customers. Taproom footfall might be the key metric that you are focusing on for that. If you're looking at D2C growth, this is all about your website, your conversion rate on your website. So it's all about your emails and your digital trust that you have on your website. And I would say that a great metric for that would be your repeat purchase rate. So not necessarily how many people are coming through onto your website, but it's how many people are buying again. That is a great way of you reflecting the trust of your brand and the quality of your product and the delivery. What does the box look like? Is it all nicely branded? Did they have a good experience? Did you use a good courier? Was it refrigerated? All of those sorts of things. And then if you're focusing on scale and retail, it's all about the consistency of your message and the PR and how many eyes on your brand you can have. And then the ultimate goal at the end of that is obviously shelf velocity, and how much your beer is going through stores. I wanted to give a little example of this in action. This is something that we did on stage to make it a little bit more interactive. Obviously, talking to the screen doesn't really reflect that. But I use the example of a seasonal beer launch. Everyone put their hands up. Yeah, we do them. And the way I positioned it would be a really, really low cost way of making that a successful beer launch. You would create and spend quite a lot of time on a organic social media video or pair of videos or 3 videos to really communicate what the beer is, how it's positioned, reflect all of the strategy around your end consumer, where you're going to position it, the event that you might be doing at the tap room, at the brewery, and then follow all of those video views up with a paid marketing video that really goes into the sales side of things. So one would be brand led, and then you move on to sales led. And that would push people to your website. The reason why you do the paid marketing as secondary is it costs you a fraction of just going after the general community. And you've got a targeted audience that has already responded to your ad, already responded to your post, and therefore you can target them with an ad. You then track website sessions, your conversion rate from those sessions, and then going back to the D2C, your reorder from that campaign. And you can say that the success of that campaign is directly down to the reordering of your, it may be the seasonals again, or your core range, whatever it is. But that's a simple funnel design for a D2C campaign. Where are your drinkers? So we've got 3 cans up on screen. We've got Jubel, Cloudwater, and the local behemoth around me, which is Adnams. Jubel is quite. I use these because they're all very obvious. Jubel is obviously exploded into the market. Very obvious who their drinkers are. They're a younger audience. They're the new wave. They're going to be on TikTok primarily. They're going to be the Gen X-y, Gen Z drinkers. So they're going to be a lot more youthful, a lot more content driven, a lot more social media driven. In the middle, Cloudwater, they are the craft beer stalwarts. They've got a high IQ drinker. They put forward a lot of knowledge, and that's going to be best consumed with a sort of more mature market that they have, which is probably going to be more leaning towards Instagram. And then Adnams, they've got more of a location-based audience. You can't get any other beer around where I am. They own every pub. They're in every single corner. So they have huge dominance on platforms and local community events and sponsorships. They're really closing in on their customer. It's almost surrounded them. The AI warning, which is a little bit less of a warning, I see it as a way to be really efficient, but not strategic. There's so many great tools at the moment that can track better, they can find better, they can analyze better. And I'm 100% on the side with the team that don't use it for your design, because you're going to end up getting something back which looks not where you want it, and a slice of everybody else as well along with it. But if you were to start to input your data, use several different platforms that can go across each other. So you can use something like Clay. So I'll give an example. If you're looking for supermarket listings and you need to go after procurement people, I would use Clay to identify who those people are, triangulate them on LinkedIn, Instagram, and find out their customer profile, what supermarket they're working for. Then use Clay to then start to pitch, or you can then create a pitch that goes to them. So you're already cutting out that time of like, where are these people? How do I communicate to them? It might be pub chains. It might, you can insert anything into that, but you just need to triangulate it, and that might save you a week's worth of work finding all these contacts. You're not necessarily using AI to speak to them, but you're very much cutting the time down to get to them. Always tell your own story. Don't let AI tell you what your story is. It's a really, really common starting point that people have, which is like, look at my website, look at my Instagram. What is my brand strategy? If you've not had a brand strategy to start with, you're shooting all over the place. So all AI is doing is trying to pull a centralized theme of what you've put out there. And if that centralized theme isn't actually reflective of your current brand and visual identity, then you're going after something that does not reflect your customer when you actually get their can in their hand. So as Matty was saying about the can in the park, and your AI's told you that's what you think it is, but actually you're more of a pub brand, then you're sort of splitting off into two different directions. And the more you go down that road, the further apart you become from what your ideal strategy could be. AI makes a good marketing faster and bad marketing louder. I love that little point in there. I just dropped that in at the end. And my key takeaway is, when your brand and marketing sync up, the business levels up. Ditch the tug of war and learn how to get aligned. And that's marketing, brand, and strategy altogether.
Mic drop moment. Cheers, Jack. That's wicked, man. It's always a pleasure to hear that, live and digitally as well. And when you're talking about the AI stuff there as well, there's one thing that sprung to mind. Again, I saw online recently Matt Tanaka from Stout, who kind of does what we do out in the States. He was talking about the biggest challenge that they've got isn't like other AI artists and stuff. It's now prospective clients delivering a brief that has been written by AI. And so now all of a sudden, as a creative team, you're having to think well, does the client actually want this, or does AI suggest that the client wants this to achieve their goals, and you're going 2 level deep into it, which is a scary prospect. Matty, I can see that you're nodding your head furiously there, man. You're muted, but I don't know if you want to share anything.
Yeah, like I think these guys will agree that the number one thing to nail and get right is the brief. Like, and if there's a few red flags going off, and you can you can see it in a brief where you just go, oh, this doesn't sound like the words of a human being putting together a brief. Like, this is, and I don't think they would actually sign off on this. Like, and then so you can, and double checking it back. It's crazy, and I get it. Like, people are busy, and and because it is hard. It's hard to put together a good brief. And wow,
I've just done a website proposal for a very large company that when I sent the skeleton and the copy and everything over to the client, they replied back within 15 minutes. I was like, oh, that feels awfully quick, and all of the changes were stripping out all of the like really nuanced wording that we'd done to just come back with like, here's this. Great, loads of hyphens.
Yeah.
See, that's another thing, isn't it? Like, actually, everyone's been so attuned to like rapid response times, but now if it's too quick, you're going, hang on. Clearly a human hasn't done this, because no human could do it in the 15 minutes when you're trying to review a 20-page deck or something.
And just personality, like, whereas, I think that's also, to cover off in the brand and the identity, like, what's the personality of it? Like, AI doesn't have an opinion unless you tell it what to think, and it doesn't have a personality at all, and it can't create that for you. And so I think, and that's even just as a reminder to other people working on their brands, it's so easy over time to sort of filter out all the personality stuff. Like, and I find we go through phases of it. Oh, we've been too aspirational, too fluffy. Let's just be straight talking. And then we go, oh, now it's really boring. And, and so it's tricky.
Well, it's like, Harry, you and I, we've worked on tone of voice documents together before, and it's like, it's a critical piece at the end of the day for any brand, especially like you say, when AI is generating it left, right, and center, but it is so obvious in terms of the patterns and the phrasing that it will tend to use or lean on. It's a key differentiator, and so overlooked a lot of the time as well, I reckon.
Yeah, it's so affordable to nail tone of voice and do really well with it. And that's a really boring piece, and I keep going back to efficiency and money, but that's why I love what we do, how we do it as a collective, because I think our experience means that we get the day-to-day of what actually is going to be a pain, or what's actually going to crop up, or what things you might need to flag in that journey cross-departmentally. So it's getting that nice mix of nailing the flavoursome identity, brand, that personality piece, with getting these things right is just really helpful and makes your life a bit easier. It's quite fun. But yeah, love to talk tone of voice with anyone who ever wants to do it.
I've just realized we've just started rambling at the end of the presentation, which is probably even more enjoyable. We should just do sessions like this. It's better. But let's take it on home. Strategy, obviously, it's the foundation. It gives you that strength and confidence that whatever you're doing for your brand, your identity, your marketing, it keeps it on track and aligned with your goals. Identity is, of course, how you visually reflect that, the signposting that Matty so eloquently talks about. And then, of course, Jack drove it on home when it came to the idea that then it's taking the strategy and the identity and putting it into practice day in, day out, so people know who you are, but not just anyone. It's the right people, of course, time and time again. Team, is there anything else that you want to throw in before I do my standard wrap-up spiel? Overwhelming silence. Good job. All right, wicked. Well, if that's it, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your time today. For those people who've tuned in, giving me a little wave emoji on Instagram or wherever you are, you rock. Of course, if you have any questions for any of the collective, you can reach out to us individually or via the brandweavercollective.com. We'll be there, we'll be around, we'll be chatting up and down the country in different places. I'm going to go to Canada later on this year as well. So anyone in Canada listening, directly drop me a DM. And everyone, I will be coming back very soon with more episodes for Branding for Breweries, and there are some belters lined up. So tune in. Everyone in the collective, you rock. Thank you for your time.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.
That's a wrap on this week's episode of Branding for Breweries. If you got something great from it, hit follow, like, and subscribe on your favorite streaming app. Or even better, leave a review, share it with your brewery pals, or get in touch, because I want to chat to you. Rock on!